guys, and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Cinema. As always, I am your host, Sawyer St. Sin. And tonight we are talking about a movie that was made for TV for the Masters of Horror TV show, series I guess is what you would call it. But it did not air on Showtime like it was scheduled to in January of 2006. Instead, you didn't get to see it until the DVD release date, which was September 26th, 2006. It was, I guess, deemed a little too much for Showtime at that time. Surprising. I thought Showtime showed just about everything. Anyways, so we were talking about Imprint. Yes. So the director, Takashi Miike, you might know him from, I don't know, this little movie that is crazy called Audition. It's really nice. It's really, it's usually up there on all of those lists of like the top best 50 horror movies, like those lists that people like to do. Yeah. Anyways, and then the writers, so there was a novel that they kind of based this off of, and the writer of the novel is Shamoku. Listen, guys, if y'all thought that I was bad with names before, whew, man, I'm really bad at some Japanese names. I'm so sorry. And then, but for the screenplay and the movie, Mike Garz and Dasake Tegan. All right, and so the cast, I'm only going to talk about 3 of the cast members because they're the ones that are shown the most, and everybody else is just like, prostitute number 1, prostitute number 2, guy number 1, guy, like no one has like, names. But so our main character is played by Billy Drago. Is that how you pronounce his name? Guys, he's in so much. You would know him if you saw him. But he plays Christopher, our American in the film. And then we have Michi plays Komomo. That's it. Because I always want to say kimono, and that's not it. That's the garb that the geishas are wearing. So, anyways. But she's his love interest that he has come to rescue. And then I'm just calling her Girl Telling the Story because they don't give her a name. So the other one that is telling Billy of the tales, that is Yuki Kodu. Hey, so this only runs like about an hour long because it was done for TV. So to set the scene, we start off in a little bitty boat in Japan. There's 4-ish maybe Japanese men, not counting the one steering the boat, and our young, well, he's not really that young, but our American who has come to the land to find his love and take her back to America as he has promised. On their way, they hit up against a dead body floating in the river, and the boatman is poking at it, and he's like, she's heavy, feels like lead or whatever, and probably pregnant, and like rolls her over, and yep, there's a big old pregnant belly on this very, very, very dead and bloated woman. Yeah, it's lovely. So, you know, one of the men dumps out his, you know, liquor. Rest in peace, our young American Christopher tops his hat, and they keep moving to this little place that basically it's like an island for prostitution. So, as you can imagine, there are girls that are like, ooh, hey, hey, ooh, hey, hey, come on, you know, that kind of thing. But Christopher is looking for one particular woman, and he runs into this very small chicken-like man. Like his nose is weird, and then he has like a chicken beak like on top of his like hair. It's very strange, very odd. And he, you know, is like, oh, I'm looking for, you know, Christopher's like, I'm looking for a particular woman, you know, says her name, and the dude seems very weird. He's like, oh no, never been here, you know, kind of thing. And, you know, he's like, okay, well, Christopher's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go, you know. And the dude's like, no boats until morning, you're gonna have to stay, just pick a girl, and, you know, whatever. So he picks this girl that's like way in the back, in the shadows, that literally just got kicked by like the madam, you know, over the women. And so, you know, he gets shown to his room. They bring him, you know, probably sake, and some other accoutrements. And then the girl comes in, and her face like looks like this side of it, like, you know, has like a facelift. It's very pointy and like deformed. You know, and like they're, you know, getting to know each other, talking, whatever. And you know, he talks about his love, and she says that she's dead. That, you know, she hung herself, and like, you know, just it was taking too long for him to come, and she hung herself, and, you know, that's it. And he doesn't believe her, you know, and so they're, you know, talking some more, and finally he lays down, and he tells her, you know, like, come lay with me, like, come, you know, do you ever sleep, and stuff like that. And she's like, for you to see my sleeping face is the most dishonorable thing of this profession, or something of that, right? And he's like, well, tell me a story, tell me a bedtime story. And so she talks about her story. Mom was a midwife in the poorest village, you know, in Japan. Dad had a bad lung, spent most of his time in bed, just hacking away. You know, ooh, there's something in my, okay. Anyways, and it didn't get any easier for them when she was born. One night, Dad's coughing up blood, and so he just decides to ease everybody's pain, and he drowns himself in the river outside their house. Mom can't afford to take care of me, so I get sold off into the world of prostitution. And then that's where she's like, that's, you know, I came here, I ended up here with your beloved, and she's the only person that showed me any kindness. And we see that, like, she was the only person that showed her kindness, because the madam over them said, you know, if you don't, like, bring in money and bring in men here and do what you're supposed to do, like, you don't eat. But so, his beloved would actually like, share her food and whatnot with her. But, the other women were pretty jealous of her, and so they didn't make it very easy for her. The madam's ring one day came up missing, and somebody planted one of his beloved's hair accessories in her room. And so they took her up to the closet and they then proceeded to torture her. So they like hog tie her, and they stick, oh god, see, I can't watch this part of the movie because I have a thing with fingernails and it just sends shivers down my spine. But so they take like these, wooden picks, they look like really long toothpicks, and they shove them under each fingernail on one hand. Whew. And then they flip her over and they stick like the same things like in her mouth. Oh wait, before they did that, they had her like tied like this, and they put very hot like pokers in her armpits, and then they did the fingernail and mouth thing. But they like strung her up by one foot, right? Like, have you ever seen the pictures of like the Japanese like silk, like, ropes, like the women like half naked tied in ropes? So I mean, think that, but in a not an artsy way, like a very like torturing you way. But so she's like sat there upside down for so long with things in her mouth and everything that, I mean, she's like, I took it, and they're asking her like, where is it? And she's like, I don't know, I don't remember. But then at some point, like, I mean, like everybody, you have to go to the bathroom and they're not letting you down, so she just like pees on herself. Poor thing, it's like all in her face, and man, poor thing. But so, now it's nighttime, and our lady telling the story says that she had brought her some water. But once she had gotten up there, she had seen that, she's now hung herself. And Christopher doesn't believe it. He's like, she would never hang herself. Like, like, there's no way, you're lying. And he's like, throwing things and like freaking out, and he's like, you need to tell me the truth. And then we hear this, like, she starts like, being kind of twitchy and weird, and we hear this like second voice that's like telling the truth. And and she's like, do you want to know the truth? And he's like, I don't want to, I need to, right? Okay. So turns out she wasn't telling the truth. The truth is way more twisted than you would ever thought. Ooh. Okay, so go back to her childhood, right? Mom and dad, first off, mom and dad were brother and sister. And when the village, people that they were in from town to town would find that out, then they would have to go to another town. So finally they got into this one area, the poorest village, and her mom was not a midwife. They would actually go to her for abortions, where then she would then dump the aborted babies into the river. Right. And so dad, right, was very abusive, and beat the crap out of her mom, right? Love that. And so when she came along, she was born. So it turns out that, like, not only is she, pretty, deformed here, but she's got a little secret hiding under her hair. It's just a hand and a face. just a hand and a face. But, she calls it her twin sister. But so her mom gave birth, then threw it in the river. Which, I mean, what are you going to do with a baby that has like a hand and a face growing out of its head? I don't know. So, but like she says 2 days later, she was still alive on the riverbank after her mom had tossed her in there. So her mom decided to raise her. Well, turns out that, Dad is just keeps getting to be a stellar person, you guys. So his lust turns to the little girl. Lovely. All right. And one night, she ends up killing him. He's looking for her, right? And he's just yelling girl. Like she doesn't even have a name. Just yelling girl. She kills him. And, man. So she ends up going, from place to place, prostitution house to prostitution house, where she finally ends up where she's at now. And turns out that her twin sister head thing situation, she was the one that wanted the jade ring. So her girl stole the ring and framed Komomo for it. And Komomo did not hang herself. Oh, no. The girl telling the story, brought her water, as I had said, drank it, spit it in her mouth like a little baby bird, little baby bird moment. But then took the rope and strangled her. Yeah. And she says that it was for her to go to heaven because to have such a horrible monster of a friend as her, she would certainly, go to hell for having a friend like her. So, what better way for her to get into heaven than to be betrayed by the one that she trusted the most in that place? I don't know if that's how heaven and hell work, to be honest. I'm not sure. But so he, Mr. Christopher, as to learning about her killing his beloved, decides that he's going to shoot her. And, it takes a couple times for, whatever. And she's like, we can't be killed. And, it seemed like it. But there's this one part where, she gets shot, right? And she's, bent, completely backwards. And she, slowly comes up to reveal, Komomo. And then, she reaches back and, it's, brains in her hand. I don't know, it's so weird. But, after that scene, it cuts to two Japanese prison guards talking about our man here. And, basically being they're really going to give him a stellar time while he's in there, just stellar time. And so we pan to Christopher, who's now in, rags and chained to the wall, and he goes to get water from this big like tub, and he sees a dead fetus in the water. And so he just like picks up the tub, puts it in his lap, and just like hugs it. And that's the end. I mean, I can see why this movie wasn't shown on Showtime. I mean, we have a whole lot there. I mean, we've got incest, we have like child, you know, indecency with minors. You don't see that, but it's implied. We have abortions. I mean, you see you see babies, dead babies, like floating down the river. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And as I mentioned before, the first time I saw this, I was pregnant, and it gave me nightmares. And then I watched it before, like I watched it like early in the morning, like before I had to go to work. And man, let me tell you, that's a good way to start your day off. You know, like, no, I don't suggest starting your day off like that. Make it like, watch it late at night, but then watch a comedy right after and then go to bed. Like, you need some buffer there before you go on with your day. But Tubi does have all of the Master of Horror seasons and episodes on there. So again, I plug Tubi. Listen, if I plug Tubi anymore, they owe me money. Anyways, so yeah, that is tonight's episode. Next week, again, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to have for you guys, because I've got a few movies that I'm tossing up in the air that have babies or new beginnings in there. The only reason I talked about this one was because of the babies. It's really not a new beginning for anybody at all. It's just sad for everyone in the story. But anyways, until next week, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Dead babies can't take care of themselves. Dead babies can't take things off the shelf. Well, we didn't want you anyway. Daddy